Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk, and welcome back to the 35th Slimekeep Devlog. In this devlog I added a casino to the game, as well as some other neat additions. Also, if you're new here, Slimekeep is a fast-paced roguelike where you must kill and capture slimes to stop the corruption that has infected your land. Without further ado, let's get into it. So in the last devlog, I created a few basic break rooms for the game, or little minigame slash restrooms for the player. And I made a really good start, but I still wanted to make one more break room, which would be something that I had in mind for ages now. And this break room would be none other than a casino. I just love the whole feel of casinos, and I figured, hey, this is my game, might as well try making one. I also thought this room could serve as a good place for the player to go if they're short a few slime balls for a weapon or upgrade and wanted to risk their luck. But let me make this clear, I don't necessarily support gambling, it's really not a good thing to get into, but I just thought this would be a fun little gimmick and change of pace for the game. And I also wanted to make sure that the casino in game would somewhat closely replicate casinos in real life where the house always has the edge. So it's not necessarily a smart financial move, but it's there if you want to take the risk. Anyways, enough talk, let's get into making this casino. To start off, I wanted to work on a slot machine. So I hopped into Sprite and made this sprite, as well as a few animations. I then imported this into Unity and set the slot machine in a new room. I also started studying the logic a bit for this machine, and so if the player walks towards it, it will display a price to spend, and if the player presses the interact key, they'll spin the machine with this neat animation, and a screen will pop up. As for the screen, I started imagining how this machine would work, and thought of this solution where I could drag images down this panel, and they would be masked to only show when necessary, which was pretty neat. Next, I set up the actual logic for spinning this machine. Essentially, I made it so that once spun, the 3 slot machine images shown before would change to a random slime sprite. These sprites would move down across the slot machine to create the illusion of spinning, and once they reached the bottom, they would teleport back up to the top of the panel and repeat this process a few times. Then, after that spinning effect was done, I would randomly generate a number to determine if the player would win or not, and how much they would actually win. If the player won, I would then set all these slot images to the same sprite depending on the player's win, and move these images to the center of the screen. As for the amount won, you can see these multipliers on the side of the spin panel. So if the player gets 3 assassin slimes, they'll double their money, if they get 3 spearman slimes, they'll 5x their money, and so on. But the chances of getting these higher multipliers greatly decreases as you go up, so the slot machine isn't super OP. And now in game, the slot machine looked like this. I think it's really satisfying and fun to play, and you can even see when the player wins, all these slime balls will spew out of the machine in a really satisfying way. So that right there is the slot machine. And speaking of slot machines, let's make a deal. If I spin the slot machine right here and get 3 matching slimes, you have to wishlist Slimekeep on Steam. Deal? Okay, well let's spin this definitely not rigged slot machine and... oh, dang it, I guess you don't have to wishlist Slimekeep. So yeah, just don't even bother clicking the link in the description. Anyways, for the next game, I want to make something with a little more player influence and interaction. And I decided on making the all-time classic, Blackjack. So I started out by drawing this blackjack dealer and making some basic animations for him. I then added him to the casino room and started working on the actual blackjack panel. Except, I decided to call this game Slimejack, and while very similar to Blackjack, I also figured I'd make some minor rule tweaks to the game just to differentiate a bit. So for example, you want to make 22, not 21. There are no face cards, but there are cards worth 11. Yeah, you'll see in a second. But anyways, after setting up some basic UI, I got to making the cards for the game. I just made the cards for the numbers 1 through 11 because frankly, it was just way easier to do this way rather than having to deal with aces and face cards. But after drawing all these cards, you can now see them all, and I really liked how all these slimes looked on all the different cards. And after that, I just went head under, kind of making the logic for the actual game. Essentially, once the player presses interact, this panel will pop up. Then the player is asked to bet a certain number of slime balls. And also, here are the rules of the game if you want to read them more in depth. But once the player chooses a bet size, they are taken to this screen and have 5 face-down cards. The player can click on any one of these 5 cards to turn it over and add its value to the player's count. Here, I get an 18 and decide to slime, or basically stay. And by the way, if you're wondering why I did it like this, well essentially it was just a lot easier to code and visually represent compared to normal blackjack. But after the player slimes, the dealer will then keep turning over their cards until they get 16 or higher. In this case we get pretty unlucky, and the dealer wins with a count of 19, so we lose our slime ball bet amount. And I also had to go through and account for a bunch of different unique scenarios that could potentially happen. For example, the player could bust, or go over 22, or they could tie, and just all that stuff. But anyways, that right there is Slimejack, pretty simple, but pretty neat in my opinion. Now before moving on to the final casino game, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Milanote. Milanote is an easy to use tool for organizing your creative projects. Personally, I've been using it recently to help me plan the casino that you're seeing me make right now. Milanote allows you to place notes, images, videos, drawings, and more, all in one organized place. I personally just love how easy it is to spread your ideas across multiple boards, and everything ends up feeling so connected and organized by the end. All the tools are also really easy to use, making all your concepts look super clean and modern. I mean, seriously, look how satisfying it is just to drag around this slime. Additionally, starting a new project is a breeze, with Milanote offering over 100 templates for every kind of creative project, including game design. And when you're ready to get your creation out there, with just 2 clicks, you can share it to anyone to gather important feedback and collaborate with them in real time. And the best part is, Milanote is available for free right now with no time limit. Just sign up using the link in the description and start your next creative project. Thanks to Milanote for sponsoring this video. Now moving on, for the last game in the casino, I was going to make a poker table because poker is one of my favorite card games out there. But then I realized that making the poker logic and bot AI would probably be a massive pain, so I transitioned to making a classic roulette table. I made this croupier sprite and roulette board and started setting it all up. After quite a bit of coding, we'd made some progress. Now the player could actually click on each rectangle of the betting layout area and could bet different amounts of slime balls on each rectangle. The player could then click the spin button, and although I made the art and everything, this roulette wheel wasn't quite working yet. So I made it work, and yeah, now the ball will kind of bounce around in the wheel and eventually end up on a random number. And I know this isn't exactly how roulette tables actually work, but it gets the job done. Anyways, in this instance, I bet on white, and the ball landed on green, so I lose my bet of slime balls. But let's say I bet on even this time, and win. Well, I essentially double my bet. Well, not exactly. You can see here in the bottom that I get paid out 1.9 to 1, so I'm actually losing a bit here, but that just keeps things in the house's favor. Also, yeah, I'm aware that even and green are the exact same thing, but whatever, that's the roulette table for you. To wrap things up for the casino, I added a few basic decorations, named the casino, which definitely isn't a reference to anything, and also made this deluxe slot machine, which is basically like the normal ones, but costs 25 slime balls instead of 10. So there's the new casino overall. Did I need to make a casino for the game? No. Could I probably worked on more productive things? Yeah. But I just thought this would be something fun to work on, and I know if I was just a normal Slimekeep player, I think stumbling across this area would be a pretty fun experience. But moving on, I decided to make a minor change before working on the next break room for the game, because I decided I wanted to make a few more actually. And this is just making a few more alternative corridors for the game, as right now there were really only 2. So I made some alternate designs, and unfortunately most of the corridors you see here kind of broke the level generator, so yeah, I only added like 4 new corridor designs, which just changed the length of the corridor, but whatever, it's still an improvement. Moving on, for the next break room, I wanted to make a few minigame rooms, kind of inspired by these aiming minigames and Enter the Gungeon. Though for Slimekeep, I had the idea of a target minigame, where the player would have to shoot a certain number of targets within a certain period of time, and if they do so, they'd win a prize. And I really don't have much to show here, but here's the minigame, and if the player wins, they get this neat little chest with some goodies. I also decided to make an alternate version of this minigame, which would be like a memory game. So I made a bunch of different panels with different symbols on them, and started coding up this memory game. After a few hours, I ended up with this, and once talking to this guy, a memory panel will appear. The player will have to shoot the correct panel to move on, then 2 panels will pop up, adding on to the previously shown panel, and the cycle repeats 7 times. If the player can recite the correct order of panels each time, they're rewarded with a chest. So there you go, there are all the break rooms in the game. Now next up, I was thinking of some things that I still wanted to add to Slimekeep, and remembered I always had the idea to add skins for the player into the game. I found this old concept art that someone made ages ago and took the skin on the left and just made a few tweaks. But now here came the painful part, animating this skin. The player has quite a few animations that I had to make for this skin. Besides the obvious movement ones, there's animations when the player dies, hugs their pet, jumps into this boat, and so on. So this whole process for making skins was super tedious to say the least. And if I'm being honest, I just kinda didn't feel like recording this whole process, so yeah, after a few days of head under work, I had all the skins made for now, and all the animations to go with them. First, we had this slick looking skin with a jacket on, this top hat skin, and a wizard skin. Now these were just the base unlock skins that I planned on adding, but I also wanted to give the player a hat skin option once they beat a boss a certain number of times. So I made this hard hat for when the player beats the mech boss, this chopper helmet for when the player beats the chopper boss, these headphones for when the player beats the DJ boss, and a crown for when the player beats the Slime King. I'm sure I'll get around to adding more in the future. I'm still not totally sure how I plan for these skins to unlock, but that's what I had for now. In Unity, I imported all these skin sprite sheets, and yeah, that's a lot. As for actually implementing the skins, I wasn't quite sure where to start as I've never really made a skin system before for a game. My original plan was just to create a new skin animation clip for every skin animation and add them all to the core player animator. But I'm really glad I didn't do that because I found out about these things called animation override controllers in Unity, which are basically animator templates that derive from a base animator. So I could basically make a bunch of animation clips and make an override controller for each skin, just plopping in the animation clips like this. So I did that for every skin, and boom, now we had working skins in the game. But we still needed a way for the player to equip skins, so I worked on this skin changing panel. Essentially, I had this skin class which could store a single sprite of the skin if it was unlocked and the animation controller associated with that skin. Then I can make a big array of this class to easily navigate through. And with a bit of work behind the scenes, the player can now cycle through all the skins in the game. And if a skin wasn't unlocked, it would appear dark. But if I go and unlock these skins in the Unity editor, you can see that they show in full color. I then set this panel to show when the player interacts with this wardrobe in their house, and now the player can easily change skins, which is pretty neat. I also made the player's selected skin save throughout runs, and even show in the start area of the game. So that right there is the new skins and skin system for the game. And that's also all I have to showcase in this devlog. So if you liked it, consider subscribing and liking, and I'll see you guys in the next one.